Welcome to This Explainer, right? Let's just dive straight in. When you hear the word curriculum, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Maybe, I don't know, a dusty binder sitting on a teacher's desk? A list of math problems? Well, I'm here to tell you that a curriculum is so much more than just a dry, static document. It's actually this profound, dynamic social contract. It's basically an agreement between society and those in power about exactly how we are going to shape, mold, and educate the next generation. It is the literal blueprint of our future. And today we're going to completely demystify this whole concept and peel back the layers of schooling to see what's really going on behind those classroom doors. Just look at the sheer volume of noise and debate surrounding education right now. I mean, glance at these newspaper headlines. Too much homework kills the joy of learning. Computational thinking skills to be introduced next year. Keeping the curriculum relevant. We see this kind of stuff constantly. Some folks are demanding that schools focus strictly on the mastery of discipline, the facts, the concepts, the core subjects. Meanwhile, others are shouting from the rooftops that we need to reduce that content and focus entirely on critical and creative thinking. And then, of course, you've got people arguing we aren't paying nearly enough attention to developing a student's moral character. This constant barrage of headlines, it just proves that society is deeply, deeply invested in what happens in the classroom. The general public absolutely has a right to question how schools prepare citizens. And honestly, all this apparent confusion, it's actually a sign of dynamism, because as our society changes, our curriculum kind of has to change right along with it. So that brings us to the absolutely crucial point we need to start with. What exactly is a curriculum? I really want to challenge your basic assumptions here today, because whether you're a parent, a student, a business owner, or just an everyday citizen, the curriculum affects you. It literally determines the skills of your future doctors, the creativity of your future engineers, and the civic-mindedness of your neighbors. But to truly understand what it is at its core, we need to completely peel back the layers of what you think you know and travel way, way back in time. To find the answer, we've got to go back to ancient Rome. Picture the intensity, the structure, the clear path laid out right there in the dirt. A Roman chariot race. Now, you might be wondering, what on earth does a Roman chariot race have to do with, say, a middle school biology class? Well, like most things in education, the answer lies in the history. The word curriculum actually originates from the Latin word currere, and currere quite literally referred to the lap, or the course around the track where those Roman chariot races were held. Just think about that powerful visual metaphor for a second. When we talk about a school curriculum, we are literally talking about the track or the course that we're making our next generation run. Most people today simply, and, perhaps mistakenly, equate this grand life-shaping track with just a basic written syllabus. They think it's just a checklist of topics to get through before the bell rings. But man, it is so much more than that. Now, if you ask academics to define this track, you are going to get a whole lot of noise. Since the early 20th century, various theoreticians have tossed out some wildly different definitions. Tanner, back in 1980, called it planned learning experiences for continuous growth. Schubert, in 87, viewed it as this massive agenda to actually reform society. Pratt sees it as a systematic written document, while Goodlad and Sue focus on a plan to bring about specific behavior changes. It can feel incredibly overwhelming, right? If you define it too narrowly, you totally miss out on the rich Schumann elements of learning. But if you define it too broadly, it becomes practically impossible to evaluate or measure. But hey, don't worry. We are going to cut right through all this academic jargon. Because despite all those varying definitions, there actually is a pretty strong consensus in the educational field. We can synthesize all that complex academic theory down into these 5 clear, universally agreed upon features. Basically, a curriculum must outline knowledge, what students should actually know. It must outline skills, what they should be able to do with that knowledge. It involves instruction, how this material is actually taught by the educator. It requires assessment, so how we measure if the student actually learned the thing. And finally, context, how the entire educational system is organized to support this learning. So there we go, a concrete, easy-to-grasp framework. This right here is the formally acknowledged track. But here's where things get really fascinating. Which brings us to Section 1, the twist. Uncovering the hidden curriculum. Because what if I told you there is an entirely invisible layer to your schooling? A layer that goes far, far beyond any planned syllabus or official textbook. This is a massive aha moment. Take a look at this quote by Dahl from 1992. Every school has a planned, formally acknowledged curriculum, but there is also an unplanned, informal, and hidden one that must be considered. The term hidden curriculum was originally coined by sociologist Philip Jackson way back in 1968. He realized that schools do so much more than just pass facts from one generation to the next. The planned formal curriculum, that deals with objectives and subject matter. But the unplanned, hidden curriculum, that deals with all the socio-psychological interactions. It essentially proves that schools are teaching profound social rules without ever writing a single one of them down in a textbook. Let's ground this abstract theory in some nostalgic reality for a second. Think back to your own school days. Think about those specific, completely unwritten social rules. You learned how to navigate the rules of the game in the cafeteria and the playground, didn't you? Nobody handed you a textbook on how to understand relationship hierarchies between seniors and juniors or how to navigate those really complex social cliques. But you learned it for sure. You learned how to cope with authority, how to conform to a teacher's specific expectations, how order is somehow maintained in a room of 30 rowdy kids. You even learned how to deal with boredom and just pass the time. If we only ever look at the official syllabus, we completely ignore the massive power of this hidden curriculum. It's entirely unwritten, but I guarantee you it is learned by every single student. So knowing that students are running both an official and a hidden race, we move to Section 2, Shaping the Course, Approaches to Curriculum. Here is where we look at how our philosophical approach fundamentally changes the end result of that educational track. When we're designing that track, we generally see two major approaches: curriculum as content versus curriculum as product. Now, it is incredibly common for people to approach the curriculum simply as content. This is the traditional way. It's all about transmitting a syllabus of facts. You take a geography textbook, you start with physical climates, then you move to economic agriculture, and the teacher just kind of delivers this knowledge to the students. But when you equate curriculum merely with content, you really risk limiting instruction to just memorizing facts. On the flip side, we have curriculum as product. Franklin Bobbitt, who's often called the father of curriculum, argued for this approach back in 1918. He said that human life actually consists of the performance of specific activities. Therefore, education shouldn't just be about memorizing facts. It should literally be about preparing for life. We should look out into the real world, figure out what habits, attitudes, and abilities adults actually need, and make those the objectives of our curriculum. The curriculum then becomes the series of experiences required to achieve those desired behavioral outcomes. It's basically the difference between simply knowing the parts of a plant and actually knowing how to cultivate a garden to feed a community. So as we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought. Think back on your own life. Based on what you've learned today about the formal frameworks, those hidden, unwritten rules of the playground, and the deep philosophical debate between just memorizing content versus actually preparing for life, how was your own educational track designed? Were you just taught facts, or were you truly prepared for the activities of life? Understanding this isn't just some academic exercise. It's the key to understanding how you were shaped into the person you are today and how we absolutely must purposefully design the track for the generations to come. Keep questioning those invisible systems around you.